You're listening to the Nonprofit State of Minds podcast, an Angel Oak Creative production.
Hey everybody, David Chatham here with Angel Oak Creative. Welcome to the Nonprofit State of Minds podcast. We are in season 3. Didn't know if I would make it through season 1, so this has been great to have these conversations for the last little over 2 years, and excited about this one today. We have quite a panel for our conversation. These folks are amazing leaders in the nonprofit sector here in the Triangle, especially, but even beyond that, they're amazing leaders for just the nonprofit sector, great advocates. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We got Danny Rosen, David Bohm, Jake Humphrey, and Jordan Bowman. I'm going to have them introduce themselves real quick and just kind of tell us who you are, why you're on this call, and why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Danny, you want to start?
Yeah. So I'm Danny Rosen. I think I'm here because I straddle the line between the for-profit and the not-for-profit sector.
Well, this was also your idea, by the way. So
yeah. It's always good to follow directions. Thank you for kicking this off. And really appreciative for Angel Oak for bringing these conversations to light for the nonprofit sector. It's kind of, I think, why we're all here, really. But I am on the for-profit sector. I own a company called Brand Fuel. It's a brand merchandising agency. Probably most importantly, we are a B corporation. So we operate as a business as a force for good. I've also been involved in starting a lot of nonprofits and convening folks to get together to, improve the communities which, I'm a part of, including and importantly, Raleigh. Band together, this thing's probably my claim to fame, raising a little over $1 million every year for different nonprofits in the community through live concerts. And I'm really proud of being a part of starting that.
Yeah. Thank you, Dana. You all have made such a huge difference in the community with that effort, and so it's amazing. Just keep going. You're like the Energizer Bunny. Just keep.
I'll take it.
So, David Bohm, tell us a little bit about why you're here.
Thank you, David. My name is David Bohm. I am the Executive Director for the Apex Chamber of Commerce. We're about creating community by building, connecting, and inspiring businesses, one engaged leader at a time. And as I look at the panel that you have assembled here, David, that is part of that leadership that I see of how we're building and creating this community that we're in. A little bit about me and my background. I was on the for-profit side a long time ago, made a pivot into the nonprofit world now 17 years ago.
Wow.
To where I've been looking at ways that I can build and create an impact in my community. My community started off basically a statewide footprint, but each job that I've taken, most recently now with the Apex Chamber of Commerce, is more of a local impact. So be able to do something on a local impact, and particularly right where I live, work, and play in Apex, and just thrilling to see how the pieces of the puzzle come together. But we are more than just one community. All these communities feed into one another. So I'm thrilled to be part of that conversation here today.
And David, I think one of your superpowers is connecting. I mean, you do such a great job of connecting people, especially in the nonprofit sector. I mean, I've been grateful and blessed to have you reach out and say, hey, can you talk to so-and-so? Or I think this be an interesting conversation. And that's so needed and so valuable for our community, for our nonprofit sector. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, David. And thank you for mentioning that, because that's something that I just kind of stumbled into, and something I have found that really fuels my boat and fills my heart with joy, is really just kind of making that connection in your head, but be intentional about making that connection, and just get the heck out of the way and let people do what they're going to do, which is they'll create some good if you put them together.
Yeah, I think it's made a real difference. So I appreciate that. So. Jake, how about you? Jake Humphrey, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I feel like I'm on a dating game or something here.
Yeah. Tell us
a little bit about yourself. Bachelor number 3.
Yeah, I do like long walks on the beach.
Yeah. It's good to be here. So Jake Humphrey, I guess ex officio for a nonprofit. I was a program director alongside here, Jordan on the call, running Journeyman Triangle, youth mentoring organization. We also do rites of passage work in bridging that divide between boyhood to manhood. And so I did that for many years, and now I kind of branched off into a slightly different but still related space. So I like to say I work at the intersection between personal and community development.
Mm.
So I do some one-on-one coaching and development with leaders, and then I also do community events, rites of passage still, and then also retreats. So people developing themselves within a communal environment, and then also developing the whole community in the nonprofit sector. Yeah, that work's really important to me, and glad to be here talking about that today.
Jake, tell us a little bit about, I mean, you're such an integral part of, and we'll have to talk about community leaders drinking coffee a little bit and our unconferences and uncharitables. You've played such a significant role in facilitating those, and talk about that a little bit from your why perspective of your interest in and ability to kind of facilitate those important conversations. I mean, that's been something I've watched you really grow into over the years.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, we're all human, and that's the one thing that connects all of us. So even in nonprofit roles, I find a lot of executive directors, they get pretty siloed, and they're kind of in their own corners. And so I stumbled into people doing this work before me, like Danny and Maggie Kane over at Place at the Table. They've been doing this for years before I came along, and this notion of maybe what people need to do is they need to connect and collaborate rather than just do the next board strategic retreat or take a sabbatical. Like those things are important and necessary, but for leaders to get in the same room and collaborate and work together, I think has proven to be time and time again more valuable in many ways, because it's a very light lift to do as well. You don't have to like go to another city. You don't have to spend a bunch of money to do it. It's right there in front of us, right there all around us. So yeah, when the opportunity came up to be more involved in the community, running these events like the Unconference and Uncharitable Nights, like it was just something that I jumped at, and it seemed like I kind of like woke up and it kind of just fell into the position, and I've been grateful to be a part.
Well, I think there's a little bit more work put into it than just waking up into it, but I thought you did a good job. Jordan Bowman, tell us a little bit about yourself and
Yeah,
why you're here and on this call. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Can you guys hear me all right? I just switched over my audio.
we
Great.
can.
Great. So I believe in a world that's rich in connection and compassion. And the current way that manifests is through my work with Journeyman, and I'm rocking our new logo, branded merch. And so that organization specifically, as the executive director since 2019 officially, served as the board president and refounder of that organization before. But we're really focused on forging independence, resiliency, and emotional maturity in young men. And what I discovered in my work there was that I'm a facilitator, and I really care about systems levels approaches to things, and how do we create a culture and create a community. I can't stop building community, I think is what I told my friend the other day. Being a part of community leaders and being a facilitator, I really care about bringing us together in new and unique ways that inspire hope and generosity and ground us in our shared work. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, Jordan, when I think about you, I think about like a catalyst, right? That you're the spark on a lot of the efforts that we make. I think that you really, you really get to the place where let's stop talking and let's do something kind of thing, right? So, and I appreciate that. It takes, and I think this group that we have here, while from a, maybe an ethnic or a racial, we're not that diverse, but I do think all of us bring something really interesting to the table. And I think that that's the value of the community. Danny, you tell us a little bit about the community leaders drinking coffee and how you and Maggie got that started and what was the impetus of that and how that's really grown into some of the, help to be, the spark for a lot of the things that are happening that we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, I think Maggie and I are kind of like everybody on this call, kind of ripped from the same cloth. Like we care, we've got high empathy radars. Um, we're doers, and I think Maggie and I had this conversation once. I was saying that I wanted to bring my clients to a place at the table to have my meetings there instead of at Starbucks or my office because I wanted to start meetings off in a way that felt a little more intentional and connected to community and remind people that there are things going on in our community where there's need. And so I started telling Maggie, we should have meetings, nonprofit meetings here in this place. And this Pay What You Can cafe, I say there are more hugs per capita there than in any cafe in the world. It's really special, and as is Maggie. And I think you get around somebody like that, who's creating something super special like that, you start to realize that you need to bring more people into this space. And we started to have meetings. I'm older Jen, she's younger Jen, and she would bring some younger leaders from the nonprofit sector in. I would bring some aging leaders into the nonprofit sector into this kind of a get together, a casual peer-to-peer
I
format.
won't take that personal, by the way, Dan.
Don't, man. I think we all, the wisdom is valuable. It's really valuable from both sides. And that was what was special about it. And we became fast friends, and what her two friends became four friends, and my two friends became four friends. And before we knew it, we had 14 to 20 people showing up at a place at the table. And then COVID smacked us in the face a little bit. We reacted by putting it online, and we had 40 or 60 people start to show up, and it became a place to harvest information and connection. And when people were really in need, didn't know where to go, all of a sudden we had created this kind of peer-to-peer platform that had no governance or rules, and it really started to take off during COVID. And we wrote our own rules as we went along, and it worked out. And so what started as a couple of people with an idea, Jake and Jordan have been really instrumental in helping it grow. They're now 700 leaders in this group, in the Triangle alone.
That's crazy.
And that has manifested itself in now getting back together and has turned into, in-person events around education and networking. And again, peer-to-peer learning and connection through the Unconference series and through the Uncharitable movie showing, which was an idea that, David, you were talking about at Angel Oak, and we all came together. And Angel Oak was one of those organizations that raised their hand and said, we want to be a part of this. We'll throw in some money. We want to bring the community together to learn about, the nonprofit starvation cycles. Jake, show your T-shirt off, buddy.
Yeah.
I am overhead. And owning that and changing the discourse in the nonprofit community from the nonprofit leadership community, but more importantly, into the boardroom and into donors to educate them about the work that nonprofits do and unrestricted funding and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think we've created a group of people that are now collectively leading dialogue in the community without any real formalized entity. It's a true movement. And say that was born on the heels of Chuck Recor and the Harvard 100, investing in nonprofit leaders, and a big shout out to Chuck and all these sponsors. It's been great.
Well, it's pretty amazing to see. I mean, I grew up in Raleigh. I went to Wilmington for school, but came back, lived here pretty much all my life. So I'm a little biased, needless to say, but I mean, I believe we've got, as strong a nonprofit sector here as any other community does. And it's because people are willing to take some ownership in that, I think. So, Jordan, Jake, I know you all have been really integrally involved in the unconferences and the uncharitable screenings. Talk about what motivated you all to want to get involved there, and what have you seen from what's been the outcome from those efforts, you think? And either one of you or both of you, kind of hop in.
Yeah, I'd love to get in there, but maybe I can take us a step back just for a moment, because Danny pointed out something really important with community leaders drinking coffee at the table. Mm-hmm. That started as 5 to 10 people upstairs at a place at the table. And I remember going to some of those meetings, and I would maybe go once a quarter. And then Danny, could you speak to the transition to virtual? How did you guys decide? Because in a moment where a lot of nonprofits were like, oh no, COVID is closing all of our programs, you guys used that as a catalyst to grow the organization and to support each other. And we were getting on these calls and we were like, hey, what do you need? What do you need? And all of our nonprofits were pivoting at the same
Yeah.
time. Can you
No, that's
speak to
good,
the
Jordan.
origin of
Yeah.
that a little bit, Danny? And because I remember the feeling of it, but I wasn't in the
Yeah.
room making that decision.
Yeah, I mean, so I always say community issues deserve community responses. And I think
Yeah.
in that moment it was there's a massive, challenge we have right now in our community. What's ours to do in this moment? And while we didn't have any governance structure, there's no CEO or it basically is a group of people saying that community leaders need to step up and lead right now. And so we have this network of deeply connected, highly action-oriented, empathetic, sometimes rebellious people in the room, all saying, "What do we do?" And I think at that moment we said we need to bring this online and do outreach and let people know there's a place where they could go to find their peers, to work through these struggles, and to get through it together. And so, it was really fascinating to watch the growth of the online iteration of community leaders. But more importantly, I think what you, Jordan and Jake did was you started to figure out that there were so many people on these calls that we were diluting the power. And what you did with open space and then how we translated it to the unconferences, I think a defining pivotal moment and should be in the playbook of every organization that's trying to figure out how to aggregate a large group of population online into specific, smaller, more intimate, actionable things.
No,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Good
'cause
call, Jordan.
Well, because the benefit of that group during COVID was it kind of became peer support, in some ways an emotional support. Like I remember some of those meetings were really like intimate. Like people were like, I'm struggling and I have to hold it together for my employees and for the people I serve. But with you guys, my peers who are executive directors and board chairs, I feel like comfortable letting my guard down. And so from that like beautiful, intimate, sweet space, we were like, well, what else can we do with this? And we grew it and grew it and grew it. And so as a facilitator, thinking about how do we scale while maintaining our soul or maintaining that intimacy was the challenge that I got excited about solving, and brought in a format called Open Space, which was all of the attendees nominate their ideas. The experts in the room are all of us. And so we're not driving content. It's all peer-driven content. And then we're dividing into 5 or 6 or 3, sometimes depending on the size of the group, different breakout rooms for people to engage in topics that matter to them. There's one law in open space, which is the law of 2 feet. If you're in person, on Zoom, it's the law of 2 clicks, which means if you're not actively contributing and you're not actively learning something, you move. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to be offended if you leave the breakout room that I'm helping steer, or someone else is steering. It's all peer driven. But you really want to be actively contributing and actively learning in some way. And so that kind of started us off with using that facilitation methodology. And then I got really excited about putting together an unconference. Jake and I and Danny started kicking the idea around, and then we brought in a lot of other collaborators, Liz, Ruff, and Cody, and Terrence, and Maggie, and Shannon, and Annie, and we pulled the right team together to build a half-day conference, which was focused on the idea that, the most exciting parts of the conference, in my opinion, are like what happens in the hallways or the after party. It's those little conversations where you make meaningful connections. It's not usually where I'm passively absorbing some sort of keynote speaker.
Mhm.
And so we followed that philosophy in the unconference. And I'll stop sharing there and ask Jake to fill in what I missed and kind of what we saw as the impact of that.
Sure.
Thanks, Jordan.
Sure. Yeah. So I remember when I got involved, it was probably 2022, 2021, somewhere around there. We'd been virtual for a good year and a half at that point. And when I got involved, I was like, do y'all ever meet in person? Because this was kind of when things were starting to open up a little bit, like we were doing some preliminary testing for in-person events. And yeah, I remember asking Maggie, so like, what's the deal with in person? Like, can we get back to that? And she was like, well, maybe, but the fact of the matter is that Zoom made it so accessible for people to show up. I think that's a huge part of why our attendance boosted during that time. Because
Yeah.
people could join. It was community leaders drinking coffee from their living room. with
Or in bed in some cases.
yeah, in bed when they're out of town on a speaking engagement, whatever the case may be. We had even some people joining from like even when they were on vacation. They're like, I don't want to miss this. I still want
Right.
to show up Friday mornings.
Yeah.
So from that space, started thinking about what to do in person. So I started organizing some happy hours, just some social gatherings. We did that like once a quarter for, gosh, maybe a year or so. And that was like, for me, it was kind of selfish because I just wanted to be in the same room with people. And everyone's appetite for that around COVID was different, right? So it was understandable. But that was sort of like the pilot of getting back in person. And then from there, we went to the Uncharitable events. And Uncharitable, I think, was really pivotal for us. And again, want to like give a shout out to Angel Oak and the other sponsors that came alongside us during that time to put those on because we finally got back to the same room in a big group. So it was like the Zoom room live. And then we all had this like shared material to focus on, which I thought, the learning aspect was really important in catalyzing the group of everyone feeling like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm taking a long route to
No,
answer
you're
the
fine.
question
Go
here,
ahead.
but it just felt important for the backstory. And then when it came to Unconference, the biggest question for us was like, all right, we're gonna like start doing these full-on events. Like again, how do we scale and not lose our soul? And we
Yeah.
wrote out maybe 7 or 8 values, guiding values for the event, like grassroots, open heart, open space, open source, creative, intimacy, equity,
Playful.
playful, yeah, fun. And we wrote out these values. And again, it's like all these nonprofit executive directors, of course, we're going to be like, what's our values first? And then once we got that, we could, we revisited that almost every meeting to be like, all right, are we aligning with these things? And
Good.
that was really helpful for us in putting on the event because you get 9 people on a planning team to put something together. It's going to be like herding cats, and there's going to be a lot of things to do, and you're looking at getting 150 people in the room and sponsors and all this stuff. There's a lot of things to handle, but because we had those values, it was really helpful for us.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is I've been privy to some of those kind of conversations and planning and some of those things. And is it a perfect process? No, but what I've really appreciated is that, there's a lot of humility there, right? I mean, there's a lot of people willing to just say, you know what, that needs to get done. I'll do that, right? Or, and I just that's just to me, that's why it has been successful is because there's not an ego or a pride leading it. It's more about how can we all just work together. David, you've seen the nonprofit sector here in the Triangle move and evolve. Where do you think it's come from? Where do you think it is? And where do you think it's going? I'll ask you to get your crystal ball out a little bit maybe, but just what's been your experience so far with it and what are your hopes or what do you think it's going to evolve into?
Thank you, David. I'm thinking back to about 10 years ago of being with Danny Rosen, just an off connection, as in you'll be in a coffee meeting. And I was new to the downtown Raleigh area, just by way of example. And people, I'll try to ask them, who else do you think I should meet with? And Danny's name just kept coming up. So finally was able to get that meeting on the calendar and have a chance to sit down and just explore. And it wasn't about ego. It wasn't about pride. It was about what is going on in the Triangle, the caring element. And that really lit a spark in me of thinking about that because my other work prior to that time had been really on a statewide basis or looking regionally and not being able to put some good roots down locally. So where I see where the Triangle as a overall factor is establishing those roots of people who really care and they can pop in and pop out, but it's not something that people are just flying by the seat of their pants, so to speak. They're doing it for a reason. It's something that's calling them, bringing them together. And I'll say the intentionality. I was part of those really beginning meetings at a place at the table. They just bring in a speaker and whoever could show up sort of thing. And to outgrow that space with a table of about, 6 to 10 people to then going online and seeing the hundreds of people there.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of intentionality. So I think where we're going for the future is taking the intentionality and saying, how do we make this part of the fabric so that we're all growing those roots to establish, to see what we can do to make that change, or to be a catalyst like a Jordan, to come in and say, okay, we understand that. We've talked about it. We've kicked some ideas around, but what do we do? Let's don't just sit around and talk about it. Let's put these ideas into motion. And that comes very simply from the very simple base step of whether that's having a cup of coffee or a lunch or just a side conversation after one of the meetings. And lo and behold, if you put it out there, you're going to see, and what I predict going forward, the triangle will continue to step up. They're going to continue to implement. They're going to continue not to be content with the status quo. And that's what I think you keep seeing around here.
Yeah.
Is there more things that can be done? Always, and absolutely. That'll always be the case. But somebody's got to at least start down that road. And I see people like those who we have here on the panel. Those are the catalysts. Those are the people planting the seeds. And I think that's just the fabric of who we are as the triangle.
Yeah. Thanks, David. Danny, you know, again, I'm biased. I love the triangle. I love this area, but you know, are we so special that this can't be done in other areas? I mean, you know, is this replicable? You know, can other people do this, or
Yeah.
we just have the magic sauce here in the triangle? And
Yeah, in a word, yes. We've got some, we've got some playbooks now that I think are easily shareable. It just takes someone willing to do, and someone who's got influence probably in their community that's willing to see the value in this. I think when we go back to like the organizations that have stepped up to support us, like Angel Oak, you've got United Way, North Carolina Center for Nonprofits, you've got Triangle Community Foundation, Armstrong McGuire, Moss and Ross. Like there's just this group that of
don't
folks
forget
that I think,
Dateable. Don't forget my buddies at Dateable.
and Dateable. Oh my gosh, and they're on the for-profit side, right?
I know,
And
right?
they're working with nonprofits. So
Yeah.
I was mentioning all the nonprofit organizations, the umbrella organizations, and I think those that exist in other communities can be umbrella supporters to some of the leaders that are doing it, and they should replicate it. And I think we've got a bit of a playbook that we'd love to share.
What can you share, and everybody jump in here, but what are 2 or 3 lessons learned that people really should pay attention to kind of get this kind of momentum, this kind of movement, either started or kickstarted, to be a bigger force in their community?
Jake?
First it comes to mind for me is like people focused, people centric, like always centered around like, what are people coming to get out of whatever movement you're trying to start? And designing it from a place of being like a warm hug to them first, because that's gonna translate into everything you do. And like I said at the beginning, we're all human. We're all seeking connection. We're all seeking to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And that's what really creates community, is when all of us have this shared vision and purpose, to join together in some sort of like focal point of action. So that's just one, and I'll pass it off to Jordan if you got something.
Lost your audio.
There we go. Am I back?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think the United Way is a perfect partner for us now. They're focused on eradicating poverty, but specifically through strategic partnerships. So every nonprofit in our community is not focused on eradicating poverty. But what we said was bridging, like reaching out and bringing more people into our nonprofit sector, and then bonding, creating a strength or a tightness within the social fabric. I would use the word bridging and bonding social capital to pull on the research of, I forget his name. He wrote Bowling Alone, but he's talking about the decline of
Join or die. We lost you again.
I'm sorry, guys. My audio is weird. This should be better. So
That's fine.
Join or Die. Yeah, that movie and Bowling Alone, the book, and he talks about this, that this will increase every other aspect. So we're looking upstream to Well, when our nonprofit leaders work together more, we're gonna increase the outcomes in every other way. And it's really hard to measure what we do. It's like, yes, it feels like a warm hug. Yes, we're having a good time. Yes, we're helping each other solve challenges. But I just flew into Raleigh and I had to run over here to get to record this podcast. And I ran into Nick Allen at NPower. And I was like, hey, is there a podcast studio here? He's like, oh, use my office. And I'm using a My Future NC pen. And so it's like a perfect example of like when we know each other, we can work better together and we can be more efficient. And these are small little ways, but
Yeah.
I've talked to folks who say that like, hey, I got my job because of this group, or
Mm,
I applied for a collaborative grant because of this group.
mm.
Hard to measure every little aspect. Or someone who said, I had preconceived notions of nonprofit leaders in our region, and now I think completely different than that. I think that these people are more welcoming and I'm excited to work with them. And so, yeah, I would say bridging and bonding social capital is a key, it's a key way to move at a systemic level the issues in your area, and anyone can do that and really rely on the power of partnerships. And I would say just like go do it, try it out. And if anyone
Yeah.
wants to ask us questions about what worked for us, I'm happy to advise people because I want to see more flourishing and more purpose and more change in the world.
Yeah. Danny, you got something?
Yeah, I just want to. I'm thinking about a couple weeks ago, the unconference event where you're sitting in a room with, basically there's no person David Bohm isn't on the podium espousing his beautiful, smart views to a group of, 150 nonprofit leaders. Every nonprofit leader is on the podium in a small, intimate group talking about their challenges. So I'm thinking about this peer-to-peer thing in this moment with the changes that we're starting to see because of the government that is taking away
Yeah.
funding from a lot of nonprofits and really creating struggles for those that are trying to improve the world. And so I think the nonprofit sector is at risk right now,
Yeah.
and at risk at retaining talent and recruiting talent. And so how can we be there for each other during this time to help us kind of get together to rethink the strategies within our organizations to diversify funding, to think about, approaching funding in a different way. And I think those things are extremely important right now. And I think at the peer-to-peer level, it's the best place to do it because I think it's hard as a leader to go to your board and say, I'm scared.
Mhm.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell your staff that. You're not going to tell your board that because you're putting yourself
Right.
at risk. But if you can talk to a peer like David, Jake, Jordan, or yourself, David, and say, this is what I'm going through. What are you going through? How do we solve this together? That I think is the value. That's the why to me, this
Yeah.
peer-to-peer value.
Well, thank you, Danny. What I find interesting about these crises, I'm old enough to have lived through a lot of crises in our, in our world. And, what I find during this time is that there's often two extreme reactions. One is to eat your own, right? And just kind of like, take it out on each other almost, right? And the other one is and again, there's nothing necessarily bad about this next one, but it's we all come together and look for a solution, right? I mean, after 9/11, everybody just came together, right? I mean, we banded together, right, Danny? And
Right.
that, yeah, right. And but in some cases, especially when there's politics involved, there's a lot of dissension, there's a lot of backbiting, there's a lot of that. And I think this is going to be a defining moment, a defining time in the nonprofit sector because there may be limited resources in some communities. There may be gaps that are going to be difficult to fill. We're seeing it with our clients, but having to, I think Jordan's point was, finding that way to say, you know what, we're not competing, right? We're working towards the same goal. How can we get there together? And to have a foundation that I feel like has been built through over the years with community leaders drinking coffee, with the unconference, the uncharitable screenings, all of those things. I feel like it's just, we're in a place where people are truly working together towards sustainability, towards, that Danny, you mentioned co-opetition here in the, in the chat. But, anyway, don't get me started on all this. It's too late.
I think
So,
we
David, any thoughts on this?
Let's get you started is what I would
Oh
say.
man,
Let's
I don't know.
go.
I've already gone off on some rants talking about, I don't even want to get started, but I've had some very vocal leanings these last month or so, and I'm afraid I might have made a few people angry, but that won't be the first time that's happened.
Well, and our organization's not out of the political realm. None of us are
Sure.
non-political, but we believe
Right.
in pluralism. And I believe
Yeah.
in that. And my DNA, to the degree to which it's in this, is how do we depolarize? And
Right.
it doesn't matter who you voted for, we care about our community. And that civic engagement at like a triangle level is really, really important. And in my opinion, is the most impact we can have
Yeah.
politically. And so that's one layer. And I would say we believe that cooperation is better than competition, or
Yeah.
collaboration is better than competition, and that we're better together.
Yeah.
We will be, and we will continue to be. So those are just some thoughts in there. So David, keep bringing your voice, and we need all the voices at the table. It's
Well,
kind of
I try to speak truth in love, but sometimes, the love part gets lost sometimes. So I got to keep that going.
well,
Hey,
and then
hey,
in community, we keep you accountable. We hold your
That's
feet
right.
to the
No, I
fire of
appreciate that.
let's
I
let's
appreciate
stay
that.
in the love element, and that's why
Yeah.
we do this. Yeah.
David, did you have something?
Yeah, those are two important things. Well, one thing that Jordan just struck with me is the accountability portion of it. And I think that's something that I won't say is unique to the triangle, but something that certainly I have seen time and time again, whether that's community leaders drinking coffee or any organization that's bringing together a collaborative of individuals. But secondly, I just recently attended a conference and walked away with several different takeaways. But one of the ones that resonated with me as of late is you can't make somebody be engaged from the standpoint of when you are inviting them in to be a volunteer, or think in the nonprofit space, that could be a board member, into a committee, a volunteer, or a staff member. Essentially, the person's point was they're either engaged or they're not. You can't make or force them to be engaged to the standpoint of trying to resolve whatever the issue is you're trying to resolve. So that was a pretty big aha moment for me, is who are you inviting into the organization or to be a part of whatever your universe is to affect some sort of change or to be a catalyst. Are you spending more time trying to make somebody be engaged, or do you already have engaged people around the table?
Yeah. I like a good challenge, David. I go after the ones I'm I'm kidding.
Well,
Yeah, Jake, with I know your experience, you've dealt with things like resilience and really looking at that part of the world of overcoming these kinds of challenges. What role does resilience play in our community right now in the nonprofit sector?
Well, I think you said it there. I mean, this is a time of resilience, and um, I've lived through less seasons of storms than maybe some in this room have, and that's why right there Jordan was talking about bridging and bonding. Like, I need to lean on people my age need to lean on people who have been through more of these than us, so we can learn from each other. And we also need to innovate, like get creative. Um,
That's
that's
right.
it's really the only way through this is connecting
Yeah.
and innovation. Nonprofits are in a very interesting place, being basically the subcontractors of innovation for the government because of how the tax structure is laid out. So the government doesn't feel like covering all of the essential services, that they find it too complex for the federal government to handle all these like micro issues. And so nonprofits are often the ones who end up filling those gaps and plugging those holes where the government can't. And
Yeah.
so this group, again, has been really pivotal in coming up with new ideas, these collaborative grants or new initiatives. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more of a think tank model evolve in some sense, where we can brainstorm some ideas. We have this like giant working document that's becoming like a bit of it's kind of in the works right now, but we're hoping to transform it into a nonprofit leader's guide for the Triangle for anyone currently involved or working on getting involved. to know kind of some tips and tricks, things to avoid, things to dive into, and then also new ideas that we're developing too. So yeah, I think just to go back to your point about resilience, it's about staying nimble and being able to pivot, which can be hard for a lot of big organizations.
Yeah.
But respect to those who do, and like United Way is one of those too. Like they've gone through a lot of major changes the last 5 years, 10 years, and showing us that you don't have to be small to still be nimble.
Yeah. And, I think one of the biggest challenges a lot of nonprofits face is kind of that paralysis, right? They don't know quite sure what to do, or they're afraid they're going to make the wrong mistake, or they'll take the wrong action and make a mistake. And rather than that, they just kind of sit, right? So
yeah,
go ahead.
Everyone's so worried about optics, like whatever optics are. Like, I don't know how many times I've heard the word optics be thrown around the room, and like, hey, it is worth worrying about what people think and how our funders and board members and community partners see us as organizations. But
yeah,
and I've seen optics get in the way of it. It's like a invisible speed bump that pops up in the road, and people are like, "Ooh, look out, we're gonna hit it!" And I'm like, where is it? I don't see it.
no.
It's just
Danny, you
stops.
mentioned the manifesto there in the chat. What's up with that?
Yeah, man, we've got a manifesto. We don't really have any like formal governance or, like I mentioned, it's a movement of people just trying to do good things with each other. But we do have a manifesto, and I think it's worth reading. But I don't want to read it all myself. I'm going to put into the chat really quickly.
Yeah.
While I do this, why don't you read this first part, Jake? And then let's see here. I forget what was last. We're going to overlap. Hold on. Dang it.
That's all right.
I don't want to. We're a PG 13.
I got mine
Yeah.
too. I got mine too pulled up here, Danny.
This is an adult podcast, so I think
It
people
is.
can handle it.
Tangible change. All right, let's see here. This next one will be for David Bohm. Let's see here. All right. This next one will be for table.
Oh, we're doing the full version. All right. Unabridged.
Unabridged. This one's for Jordan. And then this last one will be for you, David, the other David. And I'll read the last sentence.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's start.
All right. Welcome to Community Leaders Drinking Coffee. In the Triangle, we embrace the power of peer-to-peer wisdom and the courage to be vulnerable. We acknowledge that every leader is a learner. Every teacher is a student. We believe in open doors, open source, and open hearts. What lifts one of us lifts all of us. Our nonprofit community grows stronger when we share freely, collaborate boldly, and celebrate each other's victories. We believe in rolling up our sleeves, in moving from conversation to action, and turning compassion into tangible change.
We are united by purpose and driven by impact. We are a network of nonprofit leaders who refuse to accept the status quo. We are activists, dreamers, and doers. We believe that every challenge our community faces can be solved when we bring our collective wisdom, resources, and empathy to the table.
Our strength lies in our diversity. Our power comes from our unity. Our impact grows through our willingness to learn from each other.
The Triangle is our home, and its future is in our hands. All who seek to learn and contribute belong here.
Join us. The future of our community refuses to wait.
That's a pretty good way to end it right there. I don't know that we need to say anything else. So that was powerful. Thanks for sharing that, Danny.
Yeah, collectively put together by the team. It's so good.
Wow. That's great. Well, I do want to give each of you a chance. If there's any takeaway that you really want to make sure the folks listening have in their pocket here, I'd love to give you a chance.
Yeah, I just want to encourage listeners that now more than ever, we need to come together. And we have a manifesto now, so we seem really official, but this was a ragtag group of just like, creatives and
like the guerrilla army.
Yeah. Yeah, but we engaged in benevolent mischief together. And we had a lot of fun doing it. And so if you're thinking about how do I support my community, I think getting together and creating, bring in someone who knows about creating psychological safety in a group and giving people the opportunity to share what's really going on. Like, how are you really doing?
Right.
And being a good neighbor. Now more than ever, we need that. So I encourage you to do it.
Awesome. Jake, David, Danny, any last thoughts? Make sure people leave with?
I'll let the mic drop right there. I think
Okay.
well said, Jordan. Well said.
I have photos to share if you want to see them. I'll show them just because I think it's important.
Yeah, let's see.
So that's one of the
Oh
pictures
yeah,
of
Oh,
group of
man.
folks. Yeah, this will go down in history.
early
God.
days.
That was my
And there-
birthday. I remember that one.
Yeah, and then this one here,
Oh, yeah.
first on conference.
Yeah.
Me looking longingly into your
Oh,
neck, ears, Jake.
I need to get you a stool.
Giving those guys shout outs. This is one of the uncharitable events at
oh
Marbles.
yeah.
Super engaging.
Love it.
This was the
Wow, look at that.
Rialto 432.
It's our first screening.
Yeah.
First one.
That's
And-
pretty
and kicked it
amazing.
off. Yeah, I love this group at the front.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, it's
No,
this-
thank you for doing that.
yeah, it's nice to see
Well,
such a great group of people come together and do great things together.
Mm.
So Danny, I guess there's somebody here. Well, I know there's a Community Leaders Drinking Coffee page on LinkedIn, so I know that you can do that. How else, Danny, can people find out just more about what this is about? And, do you want to give out your personal phone number or?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Maggie and I kind of deal with a lot of the inbound stuff. You can
Sure.
send me a note, DannyR@brandfuel.com. I think Maggie is, what is she? Maggie at the place? I don't even know her email
Yeah,
address.
Maggie at tableraleigh.org.
TableRaleigh.org. There you go. Maggie
Yeah.
at TableRaleigh.org. One of the two of us will get you down the path of connection. And we hope to see, you and others there and joining us.
And David, I just wanted to share and encourage folks, go ahead and take that step. That's very important. Even though this is kind of this ragtag thing and oh my goodness, I just feel intimidated. Don't be intimidated. Go ahead, be bold, step into these shoes or step into this universe along with everybody else. You'll find you'll be welcomed, you'll be accepted, and you're going to walk away with so many good things. I like to summarize it as sign up, show up, but then follow up. That's your action step. Follow up with it, whether it's this group here or find a group of peers to be accountable towards. And tremendous things will continue to happen and be done because you followed up.
No, that's great. Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Thank you, Danny, for being the catalyst for this conversation. And hopefully it's just the first of many, and look forward to staying in touch with you all. Maybe the next unconference, when I know we've got a Community Leaders Drinking Coffee coming up in April. So I know we'll see each other again, and just encourage other folks to be inspired by the work that you're doing and the investment you're making in our community. So thank you for that. Thank you for listening to Angel Oak Creative's podcast, Nonprofit State of Mind. Certainly, please check out the other episodes, and look forward to talking in the near future.